What's happening, vinyl community? Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you guys are when you're watching this. It's my last night in beautiful Charlotte, North Carolina, and I figured, what's a better way to end the trip than an overall update of everything I've purchased this trip. It's been wonderful. It's been a hell of a lot. It was a hell of a lot better this time around than the first time around, except for one little hiccup on my end. I'd actually booked this trip around Record Store Day. Well, my dumb ass got it a week early. Didn't stop us having fun. I mean, got to hang out with Chris at Tinsman Man Cave, good buddy of mine. Josh, Take Me to Birch, another good buddy of mine. Of course, Dylan at Noble Records, who got to see him, got to hang out a little bit inside the store. The man's a very busy man, with family and everything else, so it's hard to hang out outside of Noble. But I'm glad I always get to see him. These guys are all friends of mine, and I consider them, friends, and even almost getting to the point of being family in the short time that I've known them. And it says a lot about the vinyl community. You can, again, not to get off on a tangent, but you find a lot of assholes, but when you find the good ones, you want to stick with them, and you make sure you don't forget them. And when they talk about Southern hospitality, even as a Texan boy myself. Maybe I spent too long of a time away that I've forgotten what Southern hospitality is. And these boys here in Charlotte and Matthews, North Carolina, and a little bit of South Carolina, they really emphasize Southern hospitality. So boys, just like last year, thank you very much for hosting me, and I will see you again next year. If all goes the way it's supposed to, and I'm thinking it will, I'm going to make this a regular trip. As long as my friends are still here, I'm still going to be here. In fact, we're already discussing, my family's discussing about the possibility maybe down the line Colorado, just not to get too far off base for a second, but Colorado's a beautiful state. I love it to death. I love everything it provides. It's getting to the point where it's a little bit more expensive than it used to be. And it's always good to have a plan B. And Charlotte in North Carolina is definitely one of those places that we are looking at as plan B. But that's further down the line. I don't foresee us moving, but you never know. But at least I know there's a great alternative if we ever had to leave Colorado. But anyway, that's enough of that. And we will get on to why you guys are watching this. And for me, I have been excited to share all this with you guys. I mean, it's literally been a trip of bangers. But we'll get started. I've got everything spaced out day to day. Came in on Tuesday night. Got settled in the B&B here. Went out, did a little bit of digging the next day, and found two things. Obviously, the first stop was going to be Noble. Met an interesting dude from Georgia who actually was there to meet Dylan. But very sadly had to inform him that Dylan is typically there on Fridays and Saturdays. He might occasionally pop in, but generally you'll see him on Fridays and Saturdays. But I mean, he picked up some awesome stuff and left a happy guy. And while I did a one and done that day, I found an absolute banger at Noble. This is Oasis, Dig Out Your Soul. This is a first pressing UK. Arguably one of their top three best albums in my opinion. And it's sad because this album was actually the last one they did before the band imploded. It's got a good variety of songs on it. To me, my top three favorite Oasis albums are this one, Morning Glory, and Be Here Now. I know that's a little bit controversial because I'm gonna have people that are gonna come out of the woodwork saying, well, what about Definitely Maybe? Definitely Maybe is a decent album. Everything that these guys have put out, honestly, in my opinion, has been great in one way or another. But to me, my three favorites are Morning Glory, Be Here Now, and Dig Out Your Soul. But it's really awesome to find OG, European press of all things, in North Carolina, Matthews, North Carolina. So walked away with this on Wednesday morning. Did a little bit of digging around in other stores. honestly couldn't really find too much between Wednesday and Thursday initially. I found that, and then I found one thing at which I will not be showing you in this video because it currently now resides at a friend's house. I stopped by Lunchbox Records here in Charlotte and was digging through their bins and found a 2006 UK repress of Nas Illmatic. Absolutely iconic album. If I had to pick, five rap albums or hip hop albums to take with you if you were to purge your collection, that would definitely be in the top three. But I decided I really, really wanted to find an OG. Well, in the time that I've been here, I've actually secured a 94 original European press that is currently in Denver and about to be delivered to me in the next day or so. So I wanted to spread the love and pass that on to a friend. So the repress that I found at Lunchbox is now in Josh's collection, and I know he will appreciate it. And I also know that Chris at Tunes from the Man Cave will make sure that that album doesn't go anywhere until at least that boy listens to it once. But I'm happy it went to a friend. But Thursday, I went out and did a little bit more digging. Needed to get some food, so I was going to stop by Poets Vault here the day before, but I ran out of time, and I was just tired, still a little bit of jet lag. So I went to Poets Vault. Poets Vault's not really a used store. They deal mostly with newer stuff. That's the difference between them and Lunchbox. Lunchbox has a fair share of used stuff. Poets Vault, they tend to focus more on the new stuff. Excuse me. Ugh. Sorry, guys, it's been a long day. This is my final night here, and I've been doing a lot of packing. But they do get some new stuff. Along with the new stuff, they do get some new stuff in. I was initially going to walk out because I couldn't find anything, but out of the corner of my eye, I spotted this. It was listed as 64 press VG. I'm like, well, I want to be sure. And that is Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers on Impulse. This is Stereo A7. Now, again, the owner of Poets Vault had it listed as a 64 repress and VG. Now, the first thing that caught my attention when I looked at the back is this. I don't know if you can see that. 64 onward did not have AM par on the bottom. It was ABC Paramount is when they switched. I know this because I've got a original 60s stereo press with Love Supreme. So they only did this at the very beginning. So that was like, okay, that's interesting. Then I looked at the wax. Again, he said it was VG. When I pulled this out, I could not believe how clean this actually was. Not a hair of issue. What little scuffing it's got is all superficial. It will not play. It will not sound. You will not be able to hear it when you play it. And then again, AM par on the label. So I saw this combined with the pressing and the price. They had it at $62. I couldn't pull out my wallet fast enough. And also being the person that I am, because, I wanted to, I'm an honest guy, and I find that karma's a real thing. And so I brought this up to the to the proprietor, and I said, just for the record, are you sure this is a VG? He looked at the condition and said, yeah, I must have been smoking something when I graded this. But, so, I did not tell him about the first pressing aspect of it, but, I bought it, and, absolutely beautiful copy. Obviously got to show that gatefold, which, Impulse is so famous for. But this album to me is my favorite Blakey album. It features Art Blakey on drums, Lee Morgan on trumpet, Curtis Fuller on trombone, Wayne Shorter on tenor sax, Robert Timmons on piano, and Jimmy Merritt on bass. Blakey, Morgan, Fuller, and Shorter. Guys, that is a hell of a lineup. And for me, it's actually my favorite Art Blakey album. And a lot of people are going to go, really? What about Moanin'? Moanin's great. I like Moanin'. For me, this is the one, because my favorite track of Blakey's career is actually on here. And I know that's a tough one, but my favorite track is on this one, the track Allen Mode. I don't believe this has been redone by Acoustic Sounds yet, but they should, because this album sounds phenomenal, and it's a must-have. If you can find a repress of it, pick it up. It sounds absolutely phenomenal, and it's honestly one of the best on the Impulse label. Fast forward to Friday. Met up with Chris at Tunes in the Man Cave in South Carolina, and we went to Papa Jazz. Now, a little bit of a backstory. Last year, when I came through, my initial thought of Papa Jazz was that they did a lot of reissues. It wasn't really worth going to, so I went to another store in Raleigh-Durham, which I won't mention. Decent guys, but I was very let down because they just didn't have anything. This time around, seeing what, and I'm sure this isn't typical of Papa Jazz, but was very happy with what I found over the next couple days. They had recently purchased a collection from a former college professor, been collecting since the late 50s. Still, all his stuff is immaculate. I mean, you're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of LPs. A lot of them are review copies. So, went in. First thing I see on the wall is Dexter Gordon, Man in Paris. Also see Getting Around by Dexter Gordon. Sonny Rollins, Out West. Wow. I saw 6 or 7 grails right off the top of my head that I was like, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. But I had to make my money space out. So, called Dylan at Noble. I always look out for him, like he looks out for me. Told him about it. He called the shop and secured that first pressing of Man in Paris. He's very happy with it. Was digging through the bins and found 3 Miles Davis. And it was a tough one. I'm not gonna lie, it was a tough one. Chris helped me figure out which one was the best choice, and I went with this one. This is Prestige 7150, Miles Davis and the Modern Jazz Giants. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful first pressing. Bergenfield, New Jersey label. It features Milt Jackson, Thelonious Monk, Percy Heath, Kenny Clark, John Coltrane, Red Garland, Paul Chambers, and Philly Joe Jones. Again, another absolute fire lineup, and you cannot get any better than that. So, Chris, thanks again, buddy. I know you would never steer me wrong, but I was not familiar with this one. I had a chance to sample it on YouTube or stream it on YouTube while I was here, and you did not steer me wrong, buddy. I'm so happy to have this on wax. There was a couple other things on the wall, or at least one other thing on the wall that I wanted, and we'll get to that here at the end of the video. Saturday rolled around. Josh and Chris came by, picked me up, and we did our thing. First thing we did is we went to Noble. Now, when I had planned this trip, there was a grail at Noble that he's been sitting on since November. I had worked out a deal with him that basically put down a non-refundable deposit, and if I decided I want it, that would just go towards the album. If I didn't want it, he would just keep the deposit, and that would be good. And that was Lee Morgan, the cooker. It was a really nice, the wax was easily passable, but for me, one of the things I am really anal about is condition on jacket. Especially with tape. Tape to me is a huge detractor. Well, when I looked at the pictures, I thought, okay, there's 2 little pieces of tape, old tape, not a big deal. When I looked at it in person, I saw the tape all around the edges of the jacket, including the spine. I'm like, I can't do this. So he honored the trade credit that I had given him. He He kept the deposit, and I found some stuff in some newer stuff in Noble, so I walked away with two ones. Two new ones. The first one actually they just got in like right after I left on Friday, and this album means a lot to me because it was an album that came out during my senior year of high school in 2003. I'm 37 years old, going on 38. Sometimes I feel like I'm 60, but you know, I'm enjoying my life. But anyway, um, this album came out in 2003. My first exposure to Linkin Park was in the midst of that the rap metal scene, which unfortunately Limp Dick Biscuit, aka Limp Bizkit, ruined for me, and so many others. So when I heard Hybrid Theory, their first album, I was like, meh, a couple good songs, but meh. Then this album came out, and I was blown away, and that is Linkin Park's Meteora. This is the brand new box set. Excuse me. Meteora 20. It's the 20th anniversary of this album. It's 4 LPs. The first disc is the album. 2 and 3 are rarities, and album 4 is live rarities from 2003 and 2004. I cannot emphasize enough how awesome this album is. It really is a departure for them from Hybrid Theory. To me, I think it's arguably their best album. Actually, no, it's not arguably. I think this is their best album. I will be picking up an OG of this sometime this year. It was released on vinyl in the U.S. In 2003. It's very expensive. Same thing with Europe. It's very expensive because CDs were still very prevalent in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. Vinyl has only had a resurgence in like the last 10 years. So, because of the lack of pressing out there back then, originals tend to command some coin. So, but I will be saving up and I will be purchasing an original of this album because it means so much to me, and I'll obviously be keeping this. I actually met Chester Bennington, the lead singer of Linkin Park, during one of the shows during this tour. Only for a brief moment. He signed what I had on me, the one item I had on me. Really awesome band. They were very fan-driven. They cared about their fans, and I can only say that I hope wherever, regardless of what you believe in, that Chester has found peace. Depression is a bitch, guys. Somebody that has dealt with it myself, depression is a bitch. But just remember, your fight is not alone. You always have somebody to call. And I think, sadly, Chester forgot that. But I hope that he's out of pain, and his music will live on. So, but great album, great presentation for this box, and I'm looking forward to playing it when I get home. The next one, sadly, we lost this person last night at I believe he was 91, but again, his music's going to live on with us. This is The Awakening, the Amon Jamal Trio. This is the brand new reissue on Verve by Request, put out by Third Man Pressing in Detroit. Third Man Pressing is owned by Jack White, formerly of the White Stripes, the Dead Weather, etc., Raconteurs, etc. It's going to sound awesome. This album holds special significance because, apart from just being an absolute banger on its own, this has been sampled by quite a few hip-hop artists, including Nas on Illmatic. So hence that's the reason why it's a difficult one to find. But great album, great musician. I'm sorry we lost him, but he's lived a really good life. I mean, to pass in your 90s, you've lived a long life. And his music will live on. So I'm really happy to have this, and I will pick up an original of this eventually. It features Ahmad Jamal, Jamil Nasir, and Frank Gannett. Produced by Ed Mickle, and I'm probably butchering that last name. But great album, and really happy to have it, reissue or not. The next one actually was sort of a one I wasn't expecting to find. We went from Noble to Hardy Boy Records here in Charlotte. They were doing a jazz drop, and I was actually after Joe Henderson that actually Chris ended up picking up instead because it was condition wise I was a little off for me, but decided to defer to Chris. Chris ended up picking it up. But I did find this in the bins, and I was really happy to find this because you don't really find a lot of soul R&B jazz in my area of Colorado. I live in western Colorado, which is ranch and farm country. Now, it's weird. Colorado is like psych and rock central, but soul, R&B, jazz, not so much. So when I found this, I was really happy to bring it home with me. This is Al Green. Let's Stay Together. This is a original pressing on Hi Records. I mean, Reverend Al Green. You know, you can't really say too much more. Absolutely iconic album and a great price. And I was very happy to bring this home to Colorado with me. And then the final stop for Saturday was Lunchbox. I picked up a shirt, and then I also picked up this album because I'm a huge fan of this band. This is Gorillaz Cracker Island, brand new 2023 release. A lot of the fans for Gorillaz are mixed about this album. Me personally, I love it. It's got a good blending of material, and I was happy to pick it up. The funny thing was, so I brought two albums with me from my personal collection that I had recently acquired. One was Gorillaz Demon Days, and the other was this album, which I've shown a video before this, but I wanted to. Sometimes me and Dylan tease each other. It's kind of just the thing that we do. You know, hey, look what I got. Anyway. But I took this, I brought this album with me. This album has gotten more, ooh, do you want to sell that than anywhere else, including Lunchbox. This was my original OG UK pressing of Portishead Dummy. And it's amazing how many like wide eyes I got with this album. I figured Demon Days would do it, but this one actually did. So it's pretty interesting. But guys at Lunchbox, good dudes. Had I been here for the time I was supposed to be here, I would have gone up with a Chris and Josh for Record Store Day, but we'll make up for that next year. The final day shopping-wise was on Sunday. And the reason why it was on Sunday is because there was something else on the wall that I had really wanted, but I was initially going to pick that Lee Morgan Cooker up, and that didn't work out. So I called Papa Jazz and said, do you still have this album? He said, yes, we do. I said, can you give me a couple hours to get somewhere safe, and I will purchase it. They did that for me. When I got home, called them up, paid for it over the phone, and went in on Sunday to pick this album up. Now, before I show it to you, I will actually show you one last thing that I was not expecting to find. It's a cheap heat, but it's an iconic album. This is Donald Byrd, Blackbird. This is on Blue Note, subsidiary United Artists. United Artists owned this label by this point. It was Liberty, and then it became United Artists. It was recorded in 1973. It's not your typical jazz album. This is more funk jazz. But again, it was used. I mean, it's another one that's been heavily sampled. I mean, it's been used by Nas. It was used by Nas on Illmatic for New York State of Mind, Public Enemy, Fear of a Black Planet. Great album, super clean. I mean, this thing didn't look like it's been played once. So for $8, I had to take it home with me. But the main reason why I went down there was to pick this up. Initially, I did not know about this album, and I sampled it on YouTube, and I had to get it. The Prestige stuff, it tends to be a lot more difficult to find than your Blue Note, your Impulse, even your Riverside in some cases. There weren't a lot of copies of this album available. I think there's one on Discogs right now in G Plus for like $100. This one is near mint. This is New Jazz 8276, Kenny Burrell and John Coltrane. This is an original mono press. Around this time, it's got the Van Gelder edge work in it, or metal work. One side is Deep Groove, the other side is not. What's interesting though is my copy is the reverse on how it's supposed to be. A is usually the deep groove and B is not. In this case, A is the non-deep groove and B is the deep groove. But it's still an original press, still absolutely beautiful. Features Kenny Burrell on guitar, John Coltrane on tenor sax, Tommy Flanagan on piano, Paul Chambers on bass, and Jimmy Cobb on drums. I mean, absolutely amazing album. It's one of the nice things about when you're digging. You discover albums that you never even knew existed. And the nice thing about the internet is you can stream this stuff and, you know, and give it a listen and see if you like it or not. But, I mean, it's Coltrane and Kenny Burrell, two of the greatest in jazz music and music, period. So I had to take this home with me, and I'm so glad it was still there. If you're in the Columbia area, definitely check out Papa Jazz. They're a great little shop, and they're really nice guys, and they've always got heat. But this is my last purchase of the trip, and honestly, I'm glad because I was starting to get a little low on cash. But, you know, next year I'll just remember, bring more cash. That's the lesson. But it's been a great trip, you know, friends, food, beer, hospitality. Can't get much better than that. And I will be back for part 3 next year. But that's it, guys. If you liked what you see, please click like and subscribe. It's been a pleasure talking with you guys. I need to finish packing up and get myself ready to get to the airport and go back to the Rocky Mountain State tomorrow. But it's been a pleasure as always. And until next time, we'll talk again soon. You guys take it easy.